Welcome to the Social Gravity Podcast. My name is Vic. I'm joined by my good friend Caden. What is up, my dude?
Man, I'm ready to get into it. This is going to be a good one. I can feel it. It's
You
in
can
the
feel
air.
it?
Yeah.
There's something in the air.
It's coming in the air tonight. That song. That came out of nowhere. Let's keep going. Sorry.
So before we get into everything, we just want to talk about a couple comments we've been seeing about how we should be making clips of our podcast, right?
Yeah.
And actually, we kind of have. We've been putting them on TikTok, and we actually made a second channel. But we think that what we're going to do is actually not use a second YouTube channel, but drive all of our podcast clips through this main channel and actually discontinue making anything other than the Social Gravity Podcast here on YouTube. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think we just love our own podcast so much. We decided that it's the best thing going and we should make it everything. So I like the idea.
Yeah, and just going, all in on something that works seems to be what other people do when they're finding success, right? So,
Yeah, and it seems like a good format for us as well. Like we've talked in the past about quality versus quantity and how much time we should be putting into content and so forth. And it feels like this system is like we can get the most content out with the best quality and also kind of the least amount of time for us as well. So it seems that it works well for everyone.
And I feel like over time, you and I have developed really good chemistry in this little environment. We don't have a lot of other guests. Maybe we'll do some special guests in the future. But I really like how it's just, us talking about certain topics. And that kind of circles back to the second reason that we're sticking to the podcast on YouTube, and that is to appease the lords of the algorithm. The YouTube algorithm is much different than other algorithms.
Yeah.
As you know, I mean, you're really in the vibe of the Instagram algorithm, but I've been studying the YouTube algorithm for a while, and I know that us sticking to the podcast, sticking to these kind of different topics within that podcast is really going to help us grow and grow the community down in the comments. So that's another reason.
Dude, what's also really cool is that if you're a continual listener and are starting the journey with us, as we grow and maybe make mistakes, hopefully not, or do things differently and grow, if you're watching and you want to do something similar, because I feel like people who are listening are obviously in the same type of niche, you can be like, oh, this is what worked for Social Gravity. This is what I can do, and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And I just really want to, dial in on how to make things work, whether it's to kind of inspire other creators to focus on a certain way of doing things, or really just to lessen the burden or lessen the different things we focus on here, because I feel like at times Social Gravity focuses on a lot of different things. So one of my goals in the past month or two has really been to cut the fat in all the different areas of the business. And that is what we're delivering to clients. And it's also now what type of content we're building for ourselves. And really it comes back around to the podcast here on YouTube and going all in.
Yeah, and especially like with YouTube algorithms, I know it's something we want to touch on more. You gotta have to follow the rules to a degree, and also you mentioned this before, how it seems like it gets to a point where I don't know what you said. Maybe I think it was the year 2 mark, maybe it was 3, where if you do consistent content and you get kind of past that 2-3 year mark, YouTube's like, okay, this person's serious. They're producing daily content, good content. We're gonna start pushing it.
Yeah. So the trend of getting big on YouTube, at least in 2020, 2021, is you got to put the work in. You got to prove to YouTube that you are committed to the craft. So you're kind of put through the ringer for about 2 years. And the reason why I say about 2 years is because that's the average time it takes for a serious channel that posts consistently to hit 1,000 subscribers. Now, once a channel hits 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, if they've kind of niched their videos properly, what is going to happen is now those videos are going to be pushed to newer audiences within that niche. So you'll notice on YouTube at the top of your browser, you're going to see all the topics that you're interested in. For me, it's like cryptocurrency, boxing, stuff like that. And if you are very consistent on YouTube and you beat that 1,000 subscriber threshold, you're going to start being put on new pages of people that have never heard from you in the past, and that's really why we think we need to just kind of focus and just boil down into this podcast, because people who like podcast clips, people who like tech, crypto, investing, digital marketing, the things we talk about are going to be the people that we get to entertain, we get to chat with and educate.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's funny when we talk about the algorithm and stuff. I've never heard so much talk about you. I've never heard the word algorithm used so much in like the past 2 years from just random people. And I think a lot of people claim that they know about this mysterious algorithm, and they're like, "Yo, you gotta do this, man. It's for the algorithm. Yeah, you gotta do this for the algorithm." Yeah. And I almost imagine that there's a movie where I'm totally blanking, but there's movies where you have to like go and get a secret treasure, right? And I imagine like in Facebook or YouTube headquarters, there's like a secret lab or like whatever with like laser beam security. Yeah. And inside there's like this holy book with like a light shining down. You enter the room, it's like, oh, and it's like the algorithm. And you can open the old text.
Like even if you were able to read it, it'd just be a bunch of math. And most of us would be like, I don't.
So I say all that to say, be a little weary of some random people where they're like, you got to do this and that because of the algorithm. But take it with a grain of salt. But there's some truth, and the algorithms, they're always changing, and it's basically like if you miss a couple months, you might get lost really quick.
The holy grail, I think, doesn't matter what platform you're on for any algorithm, is the fact that they need to keep users on and entertained. The whole point of them having an algorithm that feeds you content or gets your content distributed is so the user stays there and consumes content and doesn't leave to a competitive app or just leave their phone behind or close the tab on their browser or whatever. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter all the tricks of whatever trade that every guru is kind of saying. If you just make consistent, high quality content that is based around specific topics, then you should be appeasing the algorithm. Doesn't matter if it's TikTok, doesn't matter if it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. They have different algorithms. They work completely differently. But at the end of the day, that's all they care about, keeping the user locked in.
Yeah, it's interesting how back when I first signed up for Facebook back in like 2008, 2009, everything you posted and everything you saw was directly shared to your friends and family, and for the most part, probably a close amount of people, right? And I saw every post that my cousin Sal made in Idaho or wherever, and every little person. And it seems that social medias in general have switched now to them being like, you know what, we know what you'll like more than what you know what you'll like, and we're going to share that. And things like Instagram, more and more, they don't have the chronological feed anymore. Most people spend time on the explore page a lot, seeing people they don't even follow, content they don't even follow. And then I think TikTok just went all in, and it's like, hey, when you open this app, the first thing you're going to see is not the people you follow, it's the For You page, where we have this curated feed for you exactly. And there's been a lot of complaints. I remember when Instagram first changed their chronological feed, people were like freaking out. They're like, I don't like this, I don't like this. But part of me is also like, I kind of enjoy having this curated feed more than just seeing my random friends and family's posts. I get to see exactly things that are specifically tailored to my own interests. So I honestly don't know if it's that negative of a thing, to be honest.
Yeah, so there's definitely a list of pros where the user experience is enhanced. That's the whole point of it. And then there's a list of cons where the AI that is this algorithm, or is that it's the data back end of the algorithm kind of machine learning what you are doing and then giving you things that it thinks you'll like. That has almost, like, for most people, that knows the people better than they know themselves, which can get super dangerous, especially when it's politics. And Facebook sees this heavily. They basically had to stop allowing most parties to run ads during the last election because the political side of Facebook is really scary when the algorithm gets involved, because it's like, oh, you're totally left. Well, here's another article that's going to validate your opinion. Here's another article. Here's another article. And people become so polarized politically that now there's literally a political spectrum chart, and it's like where it used to be much tighter.
Yeah, it goes directly into the confirmation bias that everyone has and kind of wants to have. And even if algorithms didn't just show you things that you kind of already believe and want to hear, people are gonna, even if they had a free Google search, they're gonna go and search to see the result that they want. I remember we were playing basketball recently where we were talking about just stuff going on in the world with the illness. And I remember you said something, and I said that I've seen literally data for both sides of this argument, like articles purely talking. And if I had just seen the one article, I would have thought this way. And if I would just say other, and it's just like two polar opposite opinions, quote unquote facts. And it's just like, okay, what do I believe here?
Well, I think the problem really lies not just in social media, but the media in general, media outlets creating these articles. And everything was cool with newspapers, with online magazines, until they figured out that they could profit, right? That they could run ads. And right when they figured that out, it was like, 5 quick ways to do this. You won't believe what happened here. It became very clickbaity. Now, when they bring that into the politics of things, it's really scary because they're tapping into people's confirmation bias, like you said. People are going out and trying to validate their perspective, even if they don't have that much information on it. And a lot of times, which is the worst, in my opinion, is when people only read the headline and they don't read the body.
Yeah.
Because even I've seen articles where the headline is so inaccurate and the body doesn't even explain what the headline said. It's all based on just one sentence that one person said. And it's like, well, how did you take that one sentence, create this big article of fluff, and then create this super dramatic headline to get clicks? It's all for profit.
That's why part of me feels that with social media, and especially with the last election, how a lot of things were getting taken down for false information. And some of those things were not necessarily false information, but not the opinions of the more usually liberal media with things. And part of me is like, why don't we just have a bit of a free for all? Like, let's let everything go up, but let's let people make their own educated decisions on those facts, right? Like, for example, if someone was a very racist person and they started sending out racist tweets or information, well, then that person's exposing themselves. And then we can all realize, oh, that's a racist person, right?
Right.
Versus it being just taken down. And then it's like, okay, like, why can't us as a people be trusted to make educated decisions,
I think it comes down to like the youth, really, at the end of the day, and people that aren't as intelligent as others that allow other people to do their thinking. That whole group of people that I just kind of described, those two different parties, that's where things get dangerous, because then information is getting shared, and false information being shared is super dangerous. And we see that all the time.
So to kind of switch tracks here, I saw an interesting thing that was just announced that Elon Musk is supposed to be hosting, I'm not sure if it's this Saturday or very soon, he's going to be hosting Saturday Night Live. And I was really interested by that because I'm like, man, Saturday Night Live, usually the hosts are musicians, actors, just celebrities in general. And it seems that more and more CEOs, entrepreneurs are becoming the new celebrities. We think of like Gary Vee and so forth, and Grant Cardone and all these names. And they're more and more, it's becoming like the cool thing to do to become an entrepreneur. It used to not be that way, or be the CEO. And I find more and more, especially younger kids, they're posing on Instagram or TikTok or so forth as a CEO of a company or so forth, just to kind of get the clout of saying, yeah, I'm a CEO, I'm an entrepreneur. And it's showing because, look, we got Elon Musk now hosting Saturday Night Live, when before that was like for the big musicians and actors of the world.
So very, very true. It's just kind of like all the lines have been blurred with the advent of social media and YouTube being mainstream and Instagram being mainstream. Because I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago when there was like YouTube musicians and then were like the charting musicians. But now they're all mashed up together. If you're popping on YouTube, then you're probably popping on the charts now. Yeah. It's basically how it is. So I feel like the same kind of thing is now coming into play with entrepreneurs, where social media is putting these entrepreneurs on a pedestal and allowing them to have this global platform where Elon can make a tweet, 20 million people see it, or however many followers he has, and that has a ton of influence. Where in the past it was you had to go through the mainstream media, TV, radio, etc., in order to have that platform. So I think all the lines have been blurred now, and we're just living in such a different world. And just want to add one more thing on that thought is like I feel like the only celebrity, like real celebrity left, is Drake. Like he's the only person that could pull up, and it's like celebrity. He's only on that level where he has control over all the legitimate media sources. That's from my perspective.
What about like the Kardashians? I feel like they
Okay.
would definitely. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd say Drake's the only, but I think it's getting. I don't know. I think there is others. I don't know about that. I would disagree maybe, but I don't know who else would be. Like,
So okay, Kardashians are interesting. I'll accept the Kardashians,
or even Kanye. I don't know.
Even Kanye, yeah, for sure.
But anyway, so my whole point of bringing it up though is that I think there's this generation of young people and they're watching these 60-second TikToks and these like clipped YouTube videos, these inspirational, motivational videos from a Grant Cardone or a Gary Vee. And Gary Vee doesn't really do this, but like someone like a Grant Cardone, they talk about it. They talk about success and wealth and gender and making $1 million company. And it seems like it's just so easy. It's like, just 10x it, man. Come on. Like just 10x it. Just it's success. You got to work hard. Just success, dude. And you just 10x it and you'll get it if you just 10x it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's like, okay, thank you for that. And then then you get like a 16-year-old gets really like pumped. He's like, oh, I just 10x it and then I'll become a celebrity like those guys and I'll be a millionaire and we're done. Right.
Yeah. It's pretty simple.
You don't understand that Elon Musk, these guys, these people almost have like problems with their brain because of how much they work. Like it's not natural to work the hours that they do and be a normal citizen, to be a father, a family man. Like you're giving up so much, and it's this lifestyle that for the majority of people is actually not attainable. And we need to be talking about more, I think, self-awareness, and that, hey, not everyone is a number one guy, and that's actually okay. If you're the number 7 person at Facebook, that's okay too, you know?
Right. Yeah. You just want to find basically who you are on the team. I always think of hockey when I think of this type of concept. You can't have everyone being the centerman, going and scoring, being the Wayne Gretzky, playing all the positions, being the one that takes the shots and always winning. If everyone was trying to be the Wayne Gretzky, then who's playing goalie? The goalie's super important too. He might not be scoring all the goals, but he's protecting the goals from getting in. Even the defensemen, they're important too because they protect the goalie, right? And then the forwards protect the centerman. So it's all a team. You need to understand more than anything what position you're playing and then lean into that position, get the best at that position. Not every position is a CEO. I don't know how many employees Tesla has, but they only have one CEO. Yeah. And that's just what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they compare themselves and they start to feel depressed or bad because it's, I have a hard time working. Like for a lot of people to work 80, 100 hours a week is just not legitimate, not reasonable. It's not a good idea for them. And then they beat themselves up because like, oh, I need to be this number one CEO and so forth. It's like, no. Everyone, like you said with the team analogy, that's great. Every player has their place, and if you take one of them away, the whole thing can crumble, right? So we need to appreciate as well if people can just have that self-awareness to be like, hey, maybe I'm not built to be that number one guy, but if I'm the 12th dude or whatever that number is, it's honestly just as important because if you don't have me, it's still not going to work.
I think it really comes down to self-awareness and knowing your place, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're bad at, and being very macro about your position in the grand scheme of things. Because a lot of people don't want to pull themselves out of their body. They don't want to look at the entire network of people that they're in from a bird's eye view and be like, oh, okay, that's where I fit in. I'm not the guy who's everybody's best friend. I'm not the guy who takes it easy on everybody. No, I'm the guy that, sometimes I got to be pretty tough on people, or I'm the guy that's kind of got to do X, Y, and Z, right? Like knowing where you fit in the grand scheme of things is only going to work to your advantage. You don't have to be like, oh, Jeff Bezos is that, so that's what I want to be. you're not Jeff Bezos. Only Bezos is Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, and it's funny, you don't see motivational type videos on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram where they're like, you know, if you put the work in and put the hours in and really focus, you too can be a number 12 guy. You don't see those. It's always dude in Lambo, dude comes home to hot wife and mansion.
Yeah.
Those are the only options. And it goes back to this idea of comparing yourself to other people's success. And we've had this conversation before where every single person on earth has unique privileges and unique disadvantages in life. And even if you grew up with someone in the same neighborhood and you're the same age, same gender, same skin color, whatever, even with all those things that are quote unquote similar, you have polar opposite life scenarios. So to compare yourself to anyone's success or their work ethic or so forth, it doesn't always make sense.
And I feel like two circumstances create different energies, right? If your back is against the wall and there's no way out, either you just literally give up on everything that you care about, that you want for your life, and go do what you conform, or, you know, bust through and win at all costs. Your mind is going to act differently. Like, I can vividly remember points in my life where I had nothing. I had really no one. Everything that I was trying to do it seemed like I was on a hamster wheel. And I remember one moment where I was like, my back is completely against the wall right now. Like, the only way through is to just go forward, because the only thing behind me is something that I'm not going to face. And that is conformity and going and getting some sort of job where all my dreams are done, right? That's just something I wouldn't face. So when your back's against the wall, it's either you conform or you bust through whatever's in front of you and you keep making progress. And I feel like people need that. So when people, and I hate to kind of generalize everything, because there's some people that have really, really bad situations that are so hard to get out of and almost impossible to get out of. And that's really unfortunate. I just ask that instead of being a victim and thinking of yourself as a victim, think of that as a superpower, because there's some people that have everything given to them and they have never had adversity. So they don't know how to overcome adversity and they don't know the challenges of that. And because of that, they're just soft. They don't have to be hard. But it's the people that have had adversity, like David Goggins. We always talk about Goggins and how he's like, you know, crazy things have happened to him. If you've read Can't Hurt Me, and craziest things, like he's seen some insane things. I don't want to go into detail. You know, being abused like his whole life, been racially abused and by his family and whatnot as well. And then he just overcame. And when he was, 300 pounds killing cockroaches for a living, he saw Navy SEALs on the TV and said, that's what I'm going to do. And he lost like 150 pounds or something. And I don't remember, 120 pounds in the course of a few weeks.
Yeah.
And could hardly read, was super uneducated, and passed all the exams because his back was against the wall. He refused to conform. And the only way through was to just to be bigger than he could. Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting with Goggins is that even now, when he's kind of become a little famous, like, and I'm sure has a good money situation and has really become popular, it'd be so easy for him to just sit back, go on vacation, not work out to the level he does. But he continuously puts himself through, quote unquote, what he says, hell every day, runs like he hasn't stopped, right? He continuously puts himself in discomfort because he understood how being comfortable can really become a disease potentially and really hurt you long term. And I think that, like you said earlier, we have so many kids now in North America who, like, life is just so easy for us. Like, our needs are provided. We have shelter, we have food. A lot of people, they're not scared about homelessness and so forth. And again, I'm just going to clarify, everything we saying is generalization here. Everyone has unique scenarios. But if you're a middle-class kid, and I've definitely even experienced this, where everything's kind of good for the most part, it's hard to like have that drive to work those 60, 80 hours to go to that next level, because like, I'm good. Like, if I don't, I'm still chilling. Like, it's fine.
Right.
But versus when you're in the dirt and you're in this horrible situation, a lot of times from childhood, it's like, I got to get out and I will do anything. And I think that's why we see so many times people in success stories and people who quote unquote make it, they talk about their upbringing, and it's like, yeah, I grew up in poverty and this horrible scenario, and I just knew this wasn't going to be my future.
Yeah. So I think with Goggins, a really interesting thing to note is his mentality, right? And right now I'm reading Principles by Ray Dalio, and in Principles, he says something about growth. And he says that something like growth is the best reward, and it is also like the greatest accomplishment. So you said that it would be so easy for Goggins to just sit on a beach and, drink margaritas for the rest of his life. I think, yeah, physically it would be, but mentally, I think that would actually be hell for Goggins, because he knows that on the other side of all that physical pain and all the kind of torture that you have to go through mentally in order to achieve and grow, that is when you're actually the happiest. Like right now, I'm day 25 on 75 hard. My body feels like it's going to break down. I wake up every morning at 6:30 in the morning and my feet are throbbing like this because I'm going on hour-long walks, runs, working out, doing abs, playing basketball, like every single day, twice a day. And it's painful. It sucks. I feel like I'm burned out, but I have no anxiety. I have no depression. Things that fluctuate in and out of my life on a regular basis, I don't have them. And it's because I'm focused on this goal, and I'm growing. And like I said, that growing is the greatest possible reward, and it's also the greatest possible achievement that we can live through.
Yeah, it even kind of ties in with a Eckhart Tolle philosophy of this idea that happiness, a lot of people live their lives where happiness is always this thing that's achieved in the future. Once this happens, once I acquire this, once I meet this person, do this, then I'll finally be happy. And I think the thing that we need to get to is this falling in love with the process and realizing, like, right now, as we are going through the process of trying to attain whatever it is you want to attain, that's actually where the happiness comes from. Because really, once let's say you do reach this whatever goal it is, you get it, well, that's a fleeting feeling. It will only be there for a moment, and then you'll be comfortable in that scenario. And then once again, it's now it's the future again. Happens to be in the future, and you'll be forever chasing this thing that you'll never grab.
Yeah.
But like you right now in 75 hard, you're in this process. You're experiencing, like you said, all these positive emotions during the process of it. It's not like, oh, I'm miserable in this, and then once day 75 comes, then the relief and the joy. Like you'll have that, but you're experiencing it now throughout this process, which is really cool.
So you can only be happy right now, and I'll prove it. So remember back to a time right now where you were happy, where you experienced happiness. Okay. That happened because you were thinking about that moment. You can't be happy thinking about the future. You can't be happy remembering the past. You can only be happy when you're present, truly happy, free of all negativity, all negative emotions. Depression comes from thinking about the past. Anxiety comes from thinking about the future. So if you just remember one moment where you were super happy, bliss, everything is perfect, and you remember where you were, you remember what you were doing because you were present then in that moment, and that's why you remember it, or you wouldn't remember it. That's basically it.
Yeah, exactly. Power now. Hashtag power now.
Hashtag power now.
Yeah.
Perfect. So before we wrap up, we want to do something new.
Yeah.
We want to thank you for watching to the end of the Social Gravity podcast. Caden has a really cool idea, so why don't you introduce
I'm just saying, if you've watched all this way, we've talked before about how there's like Patreons and so forth, and like times where you can, hey, if you pay $5 a month, you get a shout out in the bio or the description or so forth. And it's fun to see each tier as it goes up, it becomes more and more like extreme of like what you get, right? It's like if you give $100, you can edit the video. If you give us $20,000, we will literally be your master, your slave. Right? But anyways, the point was, if you came and watched this far, you are officially in the VIP Social Gravity Club. And if you have any sort of question you would like answered live on the podcast, leave it in the comments. And if we like it, we'll pick yours potentially, and we'll answer it on the next podcast, and you can get a shout out.
I love that, because we've definitely struggled with our outros where we're like, what on earth do we even, like, how do we end this?
I just think it's funny because we go into like philosophies of life and it's so deep, and then we just both kind of, our brains both like, all right, we're done. And then we're like, I got nothing. We're out.
So we're leaving it up to you.
Yeah.
If you stuck this long through the podcast, thank you. Hopefully you're subscribed. Give this video a like. But we also want to answer a question at the end of the podcast from a viewer. So drop a question in the comments. We also read all of our comments. We reply to majority of, I would say, all of our comments, except if you're a spammer, then we report you.
we hate on you. We make fun of you in the comments.
So drop a comment below with your question. We will get to it next episode. And we got to thank you so much for watching. Any closing words from you?
No, I'm just excited for those questions.
Perfect. We will see you next time on the Social Gravity Podcast.